In this lesson, we'll take a look at the SMTP routing requirements now that we have a multi-site deployment of Exchange Server 2010. So at the moment, we've got our servers installed in the Sydney location as well as our additional server installed in the Brisbane location. So how do we get mail to travel between mailboxes in both locations? Well, let's take a look. We've got Alan Reed logged on here. His mailbox is located in the Sydney location. And I'm going to send an email to Adam Woolley. Adam is located, he's one of the mailboxes that we moved to the Brisbane location. So jumping over to the PC in the Brisbane location, logged on as Adam Woolley, we can see that the email from Alan Reed has arrived successfully. Let's take a look at those message headers. We can see that the server SydEx4, which is one of the mailbox and hub transport servers in the Sydney location, was able to send the mail directly to BNE EX1. So there was actually no special configurations required to get internal mail routing working between those two sites. Both sites have hub transport servers. There's no firewalls or any other routing issues between the two of them. And the two AD sites that they're located within are well defined in Active Directory. And in essence, they are able to find each other and communicate and transmit messages between each other. Now the same also applies for email coming in from the internet. So at the moment my incoming email arrives at the Sydney location on the hub transport servers there, and it will simply route across to Brisbane as required for mailboxes in that Brisbane site. So let's demonstrate that. I'm still logged on to the Brisbane PC with Adam Woolley, but I've just opened up a web browser and gone to the Gmail account that I use for some email testing. And I'll compose a new email to Adam Woolley. We'll send that off. And just jump back into Outlook. And within a few moments, that email arrives from the Gmail address. So once again, that is coming in the Sydney location and then routes across from the hub transport servers in Sydney to the hub transport server in Brisbane and delivers to the mailbox in Brisbane. Now in some cases where you have servers running in different geographic sites, you may want to have email go in and out of those sites directly rather than traverse a central site such as the Sydney location. So perhaps the Brisbane office has its own internet connection and we want it to just send mail to the internet directly without first going over to Sydney. I'll jump onto my Brisbane Exchange server. We can demonstrate how to make that possible. At the organisation configuration section in Hub Transport, we can have a look at the send connectors, which control how email is routed out from the organisation. So there's my existing internet email send connector. Just have a quick look at the properties to refresh our memory there. So the address space is asterisk or wildcard, and the cost is 1. So all email to any domain will go out on this connector. It will use DNS to resolve the MX records for the domains that it's sending the email to. And I have both of my Sydney hub transport servers defined as the source servers for this send connector. So from Brisbane at the moment, if I send a mail out to, for example, Gmail, it will first go across to Sydney and then out the send connector via one of these SydEx3 or SydEx4 servers. What we can do is create another send connector, and we'll call that Internet Email Brisbane. I'll give that a type of internet. And again, we'll define the just use the wildcard character to say basically all domains. I'll also use DNS to resolve MX records, and this time the BNE EX1 hub transport server is specified as the source server for the send connector. So let's just jump back to that Brisbane workstation. We've got the email here that came from a Gmail address, and I'll just reply to it. So heading back out to the Gmail account in my web browser. So here's the email that's come back from Adam. I can have a look at the header information here, and it's a little bit hard to read this header information sometimes when you're looking at it in plain text like that. So let's jump over to the MX Toolbox website. Use this Analyze Headers tool. Just paste that raw header information there and click the button to analyze the header. Now we can see that the message went from BNE EX1 directly to Google's mail server. It did not go via Sydney because we have that send connector in place for the Brisbane site using that BNE EX1 transport server as the source server. Now in a similar fashion, we could also have email coming in to the Brisbane site as well as the Sydney site. We could do that simply by configuring another MX record in our DNS and have that MX record point to the public IP address for the Brisbane internet connection. But because they are MX records for the same domain name, we really have no way to say in DNS that email for Brisbane recipients should go to the Brisbane connection and email for Sydney recipients should go to the Sydney connection. DNS just can't make that decision for you. But what you could do is have equal cost MX records so that email will roughly load balance between the two sites, and then it will just transmit across the WAN internally. Or you could have a MX record with a higher cost for the Brisbane site, so that email will go in the Brisbane internet connection only if the primary MX, the one pointing at Sydney, is unavailable for some reason. So that's just a couple of ways that you can control email in and out of your organization when you have deployed a multi-site Exchange organization.